Hello, welcome to the High Vibe CEO show. I'm your host, Janine Roberts. This show is all about exploring mindset, strategies, manifestation, and high vibe energy, the energy that it takes to grow a successful business and actually, live your most aligned life as a high vibe CEO. Each show is going to bring you inspiring stories, practical tools, and heartfelt conversations with amazing guests who are crushing it in their fields. So today, I want to introduce you to an amazing guest. I'm super excited to have her here today. She is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. She is a keynote speaker, a strategist, and an award-winning podcaster of the Tao of Self-Confidence podcast. Sheena, I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Hey, Janine, so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me as a guest, and I'm just super excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for coming. I would love to hear more about you, learn more about you and what you do. So tell us a little bit about Sheena. Who is Sheena?
Yeah, for sure. So everything started with my podcast, the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I've interviewed over 800 women on the topic of confidence. And for me, that was, yeah,
wow.
It's a lot.
I wasn't expecting 800.
So I did this because I was dealing with my own confidence issues and I was looking for resources that also specifically catered to Asian women just because I'm Asian. And I couldn't find any. So part of me thought maybe something was wrong with me, but also in our culture, we don't talk about the things we go through. We repress a lot of feelings. And because of that, we start having a lot of self-esteem and confidence issues. And so I decided to start it. And also representation was also important for me. So I just said, if I can't find anything, I'll do it. Even though I didn't know what a podcast was at the time. We didn't have Apple Podcasts. We had iTunes at the time. And and then I've interviewed.
Oh, wow. How long's that been? When did you start?
2015. So almost 10 years now. Yeah.
10 years. Okay.
Yeah, like Apple was the only one who pretty much had broadcasted podcasts. Like Spotify didn't even have that yet. Yes, I've interviewed over 800 women. I have currently over 1.3 million downloads. And as much as I love the podcast and what it's done for me, it's still a very small platform, compared to other media platforms. If you think about it, if you see the numbers, it's still a growing platform. Not that it's
1.3 million downloads, though. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's pretty darn good.
Thank you. So I decided to tap into other media platforms, and that's when books came into place. I had my first book, which was a co-authored book called Asian Women Who Boss Up, where we highlight the stories of 18 Asian women sharing their stories. And that led me to writing my first book, which is called The Tao of Self-Confidence, a guide to moving beyond trauma and awakening the leader within. And that talks about learning to work through your traumas to show up as your best self. Because a lot of people kept asking me how to build confidence. And I can totally tell you how to build confidence. But if you don't work through what's stopping you or what's the root cause, it's not going to work. It's not going to help you, or it won't be as effective. So it's really important to work through your traumas and really heal from them. And that became a Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And it led me to writing my upcoming book called Bridging the Confidence Gap, How Empowered Women Change the World. And as I was talking with Janine earlier, this stemmed from a report that from the World Economic Forum mentioned that gender parity would be achieved at the earliest in the year 2154. But that's actually that fact was actually when I was writing the book. So today, it's actually delayed 4 more years. So now the earliest we could see it is in the year 2158.
So could you explain real quick what that is for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, it's, basically men and women having equal rights wouldn't be fully achieved until that year. So it's going to take 133 years at least for us to have equality, basically.
Wow.
And at this rate, I feel like it's going to take longer, just with what's been going on in the world, women's rights. I mean, you look at countries like Afghanistan, where women's basic human right is literally stripped away from them. They're not allowed to talk in public. They're not allowed to show their faces in public. They're not even allowed to sing in their own houses, which is really ridiculous, right? And
Yeah.
and we're in the year 2025 and we're still dealing with this. So,
Oh, no. And we don't really feel it the same way in the US or Canada where you are. But, but there are so many women who are still, who don't even have basic human rights.
yeah. So, and if one country can do that, like just imagine how many other countries are capable of doing that. So this is why a book like this was important to talk about, the gap, how we can bridge it together, how we can have more women be empowered to be leaders, because there's been reports and studies where when there's more women on board, more women in leadership, we all win, right? Everybody wins. And so I just want to show women what they're capable of. And, I've also done speaking and workshop training for corporations and organizations, also in confidence and leadership. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I love that. And that is so needed. It's not just about selling books or doing a podcast, right? It's not just about those things. It's actually about making a difference. And that's what you're doing. That's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I love that. I love it.
Not always easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you doing currently?
Currently, I'm talking to you, and also, since my book is about to come out, I'm in like pre-launch mode. So, just getting
Yeah, that
interviewed.
takes a lot of work.
Yeah, getting interviewed on different podcasts, promoting my book, sharing my book around, just talking about why it's so needed, especially, March is Women's History Month. And this year's theme is accelerated action. And so I think it's really fitting because, taking action is what really builds that confidence. And don't worry about if it's the wrong action or the right action, just take action, because eventually it'll get you to the right action that you need to take. We're going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be like, everything's going to be perfect. No, you're going to make mistakes. And we have to be okay with making mistakes, because I know sometimes we tend to overthink a little bit. I was that way. I'm guilty of it. But I realize if I just go out there, take action, make mistakes along the way, results happen, right? I wouldn't have been able to write 2 books in 2 years for a major publisher if I didn't take action. And even
Absolutely.
that wasn't even perfect either. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so many, I think, that's like a quality of most females is overthinking and perfectionism, right? We want everything just perfect. But really the key is to take action. And that's something that we do at High Vibe CEO is we teach women how to take action and not procrastinate and not put it off and not wait until the time is perfect or until you get everything right or until you're like this, expert with all these certifications or whatever it is that you're doing. But just take action, take that first step and then take that next step. So I love that. I love that that's what you are teaching women to do.
Thank you. I mean, I know it's not always easy. I think the most important, I think the scariest step in forging your own path is always the first step, right? You're like, oh my goodness, you resist a lot. But I want people to realize that when you take that first step, that's when the magic happens, and you'd be surprised what you can achieve after.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you think about, they call it baby steps, right? And it's just like with a baby, they take that first step and they're scared and they may fall, but then before you know it, they're running everywhere. So that's the thing though. You got to take that first step and then that next step. And then after that, it gets a little easier and it's easier to take more steps.
Yes.
So, all right. So tell me, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned throughout your career as a podcaster, as an author, or anything else that you've done in your career? What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned along the way?
I think the biggest lesson is learning that I am more than capable, right? I know as women, we tend to question our capabilities, and outside forces also questions our capabilities. How many times has a woman been appointed president or CEO or in a leadership position, and they're constantly being asked, are they capable? It's kind of like a slap to the face, because you would never ask a man if he's capable, right? First of all, the woman's not only running a business or being in a leadership position, she's also a mother, she's running errands, she's making sure the kids are okay, she's doing 10 million things plus this. So,
Yeah.
imagine if a man had to do that, if the roles were reversed. Oh my God, it'd be a hot mess, right? And so I think that was the biggest lesson for me, knowing my capability, because confidence is all about knowing that you're capable, more than
Yeah.
capable, right? And when you know you're capable or more than capable, you're going to go out there and do it. Even if you don't know what you're doing, even if you have no clue where you're going to start, the fact that you believe in yourself, you believe in your capabilities, you're going to go out there and do it. And women constantly do that all the time, right? Especially as
Always.
mothers. You're always solving problems, you're always thinking on the spot, you're always like figuring things out and pivoting and course correcting as you go. If you applied those same skills in a business, just imagine what you could achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I believe that women really make the best entrepreneurs, because we're used to problem solving. We're used to figuring it out. And I think that's like natural in us. But if you've ever been a mother, then you know that you figure it out, you take care of your child, you make sure that they have the things they need and that things happen. And if someone is mean to your kid, you're going to stand up and you're going to go into mama bear mode. And and that's what I would love for women to see, is that you already have that in you. You already have that power, that strength in you, and if you can convert that to the business world, you're unstoppable. You're unstoppable when you convert that mama bear mentality and that figure it out, make it happen, take care of your kid kind of thing, and transfer that. Unstoppable. Absolutely. So, okay, Sheena, so tell me, if you could go back to when did you start in business for yourself? When did you start doing these things?
I mean, I've been doing them since probably like 2013, on and off, not figuring things out, failing a lot along the way. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, yeah, I mean, in the beginning, like I failed a lot more than succeed, right? And I think that's something most people don't realize, right? Failure is part of the process. It's not
Yes.
the end of the world. You can always figure it out. You can always pick yourself back up. But I've been in this for a while, but I always still feel like a newbie. I'm always like learning other
Yeah.
things. I'm always
Well, it's because we're always learning other things, right? And
yeah.
things are always changing and shifting. So
Yeah.
if you could go back to 2013 or before and, speak to your younger self, what would you want to tell her? What would you want to say to maybe help her avoid some of the pitfalls, some of the struggles, some of the roadblocks?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be to let her know that it's okay that you're not perfect, because nobody is, and that you just go for it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about how or what that would look like. Just do it, right? Yeah, I think that would be, because perfection kills all of us. I was guilty of it. It paralyzed me from taking that first step, because I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure everything was 110% perfect, and then yet nothing still happened. Sometimes now I just like go for it, and just sometimes I'll just do it and see what the outcome is. And if there's no outcome, at least I know versus not knowing, right? And sometimes it's, you surprise yourself, because like you do something, you're like, oh, this turned out better than you expected. So that wouldn't happen if you didn't go out there and and do the work,
Yeah.
take
And at
action.
least take the risk, right? At least take the step. The thing about business is you can take, a step and start a business. And if it doesn't work out, you just pivot, right? You just change,
Yeah.
change direction, or, something I like to ask women that I coach is, what's the worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario if you take a chance on this? If you take this risk and you do this and you step out of your comfort zone, what's the worst thing that can happen? And usually the worst thing that can happen isn't all that bad, right? Maybe you'll get rejected. You won't, it won't thrive like you want it to. Maybe it just won't turn out the way you envision it. I mean, what's really the worst thing that can happen? And when we realize that, it makes a difference, because then you're like, oh, well, if that's the worst thing that can happen, then I guess I can try at least. And then, something else I ask is, what's the best thing that can happen? And then that's where the excitement starts, is because they're like, oh, well, I could do this and I could grow this way and I could, make this much money and have this many clients or whatever, and sell this many books, whatever it is. And, when you look at the worst case scenario compared to the best case scenario, it's almost always worth it to try. So I love that. So if you could give, one piece of advice to someone listening, what would that be?
I think the best advice I would give them is to let them know that they don't have to be in this journey by themselves. I mean, as women, we've always been programmed to be the superwoman of everything, meaning that we have to do everything that ourselves to feel whole, to feel accepted, to feel that we're enough. And I want people to realize, no, you don't. You don't have to do everything yourself. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to hire someone to do something that you're not good at. There's no shame in that. Men do that all the time, right? But yet we're ashamed if we go ask for help. Like, women want support, but are too afraid to ask for it, right? And I get it. I come from a culture where asking for help is considered a sign of weakness. So it took a lot out of me as well. But I think that's my biggest piece of advice. It's like, be okay to ask for help, be okay to receive help, go look for resources. You don't have to do this alone. And it's always better when you do things together anyway. So whether it's hiring a coach, talking to your friend, working at, joining a women's community, buying books, listening to podcasts, those are the things that will help you towards your journey. So yeah, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. And we all need that. We all need that ongoing personal development training. We all need that mindset training, because we are wired to really see the negative first, so you really have to train the positive in you. You have to train yourself to think about things positively, because it's really easy to see the negative, the what ifs, right? The what if this happens, or what if that happens. And we really have to change gears and change the what ifs to something good, right? So instead of what if I fail, it's what if I succeed? What if I spend this money and nothing happens? What if I spend this money and it explodes and I make $1 million? Like, we really have to work on our mindset. So what is your biggest mindset tip?
My biggest, I think having like just 3 minute, like 3 affirmations to say yourself is really important. Yeah. You don't have to say 101. It's way too much. I say 3, especially when I'm going through moments of doubt. I say, I am enough, I am loved, and I am worthy. And I keep saying that until I feel better about myself. And yes, when the first time you do it, it's gonna be weird because you've never done it. So yes, it's gonna feel awkward and weird and uncomfortable. But the more you keep doing it, the more comfortable you'll be at it, the easier it gets, and the more you really believe in yourself. So yeah, if you feel uncomfortable, it's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I started doing affirmations and visualization probably about 15 years ago. And yes, it was very weird, because I had a coach who made me look in the mirror and do it. And it was super uncomfortable at first, because I'm like, this is weird and I sound weird and this is stupid, and all this stuff. But I made myself do it. And now I'm like, I'm always coaching myself. I'm always giving myself positive self-talk, because I think that's so important, that we remind ourselves who we are, that we are powerful, that we are capable, that we are worthy, and that we can do anything we set our mind to. So it gets easier. Once you make yourself do those affirmations, it definitely does get easier. So let's talk about the Tao of Self-Confidence, the book first.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell me, tell me a little bit more about what's in the book and what someone who purchases the book would get from it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I do talk about the importance of working through your traumas to show up as your best self. So the book is filled with learning what trauma is, because not everyone's aware that they have trauma, the different types of trauma, some of the things Asian women face, We go through something called the model minority myth, thinking that, we're seen as good citizens, good models, and then we get ignored, which is unfortunate. But I also
Mhm.
talk about, the importance of self-love, right? Self-love is so important. Self-care is so important. Teaching you different ways to build confidence. And so this is really a guide to go from like trauma to confidence. And this is not like, this is the Bible of it. This is just a guide. If you really need help with your mental health, I do suggest, speaking to a mental health therapist, like a licensed one, right? Of course,
Oh,
they
yeah.
know what to do. This is just a beginner's course. If you're, like more like, oh, I would love to learn a little bit more about that. Or, I didn't realize this was considered a trauma. I didn't realize my mind and body are so connected to one another.
Yeah.
These things are all, a lot of it, we go through a lot of trauma, but nobody ever talks about it. A lot of like a misconception is like PTSD only happens to veterans. No, it happens to
Mhm.
everybody. Everyone goes through PTSD. And so that's a little bit about the book. So it's really a guide to just kind of talk about, learning trauma, different types of traumas, and then how we can work through it, the healing process to go to self-love and then confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And is that what your podcast is typically about too? Do you go into those same areas?
Kind of, right? I mean, each person has a different story. It's kind of the same, just talking about what their life was before, confidence, how they were able to find it, and how it is after. It has similar tones to it. So, and just after interviewing all these women, I just realized, we go through a lot of trauma that nobody talks about. Like this is so
Yes.
important work because if we let our trauma control us, we're never going to get anywhere. And so it's important that we learn to heal from it. Yes, it's happened, but we can find ways to heal through it so we can show up as our best self. I believe everything
Mhm.
happens for a reason. It's either a blessing or a lesson. So if you see things from that perspective, it just makes things a lot easier.
Oh, I love that. And, and we are stronger than we think we are, and sometimes, we get in this mindset that, we don't want to admit that we've had this trauma or we've had these things happen to us because we think it makes us seem weak. But really, we need to be able to work through these things. We can heal from these things, but we have to be willing to admit it and then work on it. And I think that's super important for all women to be able to do and to be able to recognize too, because like you said, sometimes we don't even recognize that we have traumas, and that could be from childhood, it could be from past relationships or whatever. So what do you feel has been the most common theme of women you've talked to?
I think for women, a lot of their trauma also comes from their parents and grandparents.
Mhm.
Intergenerational trauma is prevalent.
Yeah.
So people don't even realize we're not only carrying our own traumas, we're carrying other people's traumas. And so we also have to
Mm.
work through that and find ways to close that or heal from that so we can move forward. One of the things in Asian culture is like we want to seek approval of our parents because, they get basically it's like they give you life, so you have to do everything they tell you to do. It gets exhausting, right? Because you feel like if you can't make them proud, like you're a failure, you're no good, you're just a waste of space. But really, I realized once I let go of my parents' expectations and their approval, that's when I was able to just move forward, push forward, and do what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like your healing also had to include some forgiveness?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And do you see that in a lot of the women that you talk to? Is it a forgiveness issue?
Not all, some, yeah, some, not forgiveness of others, maybe some of forgiving themselves.
Yeah.
As women, we play small. I'm guilty of that as well because we're so afraid, or we feel like we're not good enough, or we feel like we discount our value. And I want people to realize you're more than enough. You're way more than enough. You can go out there and just do such amazing things. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised at yourself what you can achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So for someone maybe who doesn't recognize, maybe some trauma, could you give us some, like examples that you've seen that maybe women don't even recognize that they have? Like, what are some examples of different types of traumas you've seen?
I've seen childhood trauma, sexual trauma, intergenerational
Mm.
trauma, historical trauma, PTSD. There's so many different traumas. I can't even list all of them, but
What is historical trauma?
just like in like Chinese culture, right? Like women have always been, well, like Chinese men have always were always allowed to have more than one wife, right? They can
Oh,
have
I didn't
multiple
know that.
wives. Yeah, back in the way back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, you were allowed to have multiple wives. You can also have concubines, and the reason for that was because it's more chances of having a boy to carry on the family name. But there's like our history also brings us trauma, right? When if every woman has been taught that they're nothing but an object, just imagine how much trauma that gets passed down from that. So that's why I was like,
Yeah.
um, they say generational drama, trauma goes like 4 generations deep. I feel like it goes deeper, especially for women, because for centuries we've always been like, seen as second class to men, basically, and that's just one example.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what advice would you give a woman out there who feels like maybe she's got some trauma she needs to be working through? What piece of advice would you give her?
I mean, like I mentioned, I think it's important to work with someone who is an expert in that. Like I'm not a trauma expert.
Mhm.
This is when I wrote the book, I researched it, I did studies, I checked studies, I checked the facts. But really seek someone who's an expert in that, or seek a mental health therapist. They have the right
Mhm.
questions they're going to ask you to get the right answers. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Okay. All right. And then for women in business, or maybe women who want to start a business, what kind of advice would you give them?
I think start messy. you know I think that's an important message,
I
because
agree.
we're starting, we always, like I mentioned, we always feel like everything has to be 110% perfect, but it doesn't have to be. Like, just start. It's gonna be messy. There's days
Yeah.
where it sucks, there's days where you feel like quitting, there's days where you're
Yes.
gonna ugly cry, but it's all part of our journey. And when we hit that goal that we wanted, we look back and we realize everything had to happen for a reason. So be okay to start messy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I always like to make sure that I ask our interviewees if you have anything in particular that you want to discuss before we do end the show.
I think we've covered pretty much
Yeah,
everything.
we've
Yeah.
covered a lot
Yeah.
in 27 minutes. We've done pretty good. We've covered a lot of different subjects. So I don't really have any other questions for you, but I would love if you would let everyone know how they can connect with you, how they can buy your books, how they can find your podcast, all the things. Tell us all the ways to find Sheena.
For sure. So you can check out my website, sheenayapchan.com. I also have a free self-confidence personality quiz that you can take. You can buy my book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, on Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, and other book retailers across the US and around the world. My upcoming book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, is available for pre-order, so you can also pre-order it at the same book retailers. And if you
Nice.
send me a copy of your receipt of the pre-order, you also get some pre-order bonuses. For the podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon. So you can binge listen to all these amazing women that I've interviewed. I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. But if you forgot anything that I mentioned at all, just Google my name, Sheena Yap Chan, because I'm literally the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet.
Awesome. Also, I actually have that same, I wanted to say problem, but it's definitely not a problem, is my name is very unique. So, yeah, I'm the only one too. So,
Nice.
so I love that. So, SheenaYapChan.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So make sure you go and buy her books, listen to her podcast, support her. We are all about women supporting women. And Sheena, I'm so thankful that you were on here today. Thank you so much for being on here. I wish you the absolute best. I'm excited about your book coming out. So I hope you sell a million copies. And thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's been such a blast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So thank you to everyone out there watching. And this has been the High Vibe CEO Show. We will see you next time.